Hello, I'm going to teach you how to paint this Dreamcatcher. I'm going to start right away. So I'm using a 3/4 inch flat brush and the colors turquoise and titanium white. I'm double loading the brush in both the colors, about equal amounts, so dipping it in the turquoise and dipping it in the white, and I'm painting in diagonal strokes. And what's happening is the colors are blending together on the canvas. And you can kind of decide if you want more white in some areas or more blue, if we're going to call it blue, in some areas, turquoise. And so, but we really want it to be kind of blended and not like stripes, just kind of a smooth transition of both colors. So just kind of apply it to the canvas, doing all diagonal strokes, go from one end of the canvas to the other, and use the full width of the brush and try to keep your diagonal lines kind of as even as possible. So I know this video is speeding up just a bit here. I'm not painting that fast in real life, so take your time and press pause when you need to. But basically, I'm just filling up this canvas, and maybe up here in the upper right, it'll be just a little bit more turquoise and blend it back in with the white. So just kind of keep applying it to the canvas until the back or the whole canvas is covered and the background is just a bunch of diagonal strokes of paint with the turquoise and the white. When this is all finished, you need to let it dry. My painting is going to be dry right here in the next step, so press pause and let your painting dry and then come back. This is a circle. It is a 6.5 inch circle. It is actually a coffee lid from a coffee tin can. And so I'm going to place it center, so that there's about 4 fingers on the right and left, and there's about 1 finger on the top. So I'm using a pencil and I'm going to trace that circle. That is the main circle of our Dreamcatcher. Okay? So there's my circle, and on the inside of that circle, I'm going to make a little, about 1 inch diameter circle with my pencil. I just free drew that, and with the pencil, so that's the very center. And then I'm going to draw the strings that are attached to the circle. So I'm going to do a wavy line over here in the left. I'm going to go almost all the way down the canvas. I'm going to do a wavy line in the middle. And I'm going to do another wavy line over here on the right. But this one's going to look kind of different. It's going to kind of branch off like the letter Y. And then, let's see. This is what it looks like. Okay, so this is... I'm going to show you how I did this, but that's just a picture of what the drawing looks like. Okay, so to do the design in the middle, I'm marking off 4 quadrants here with my pencil. Okay, so the halfway point of each part of the circle, and we're going to do a cat eye shape. So I'm sketching out this cat eye shape on the top and the bottom. So the point of the bottom of this cat eye shape is touching that tick mark that I drew at the halfway point. So I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right and the left. So I'm doing a cat eye shape, and the point is touching the little point on the edge of the circle. And actually the bottom part doesn't go to a point. It kind of goes to, so when you draw it, it doesn't go to a point on that circle. It just kind of has a little bit of a space open on it. Okay, so mine are not perfectly even, and that is okay. I didn't really want it to be perfectly geometrically even because I kind of like that look, but you can do that. So what I did again was I did tick marks again on the halfway points, and I'm going to do the cat eye shape again. And what's happening is this new cat eye shape I'm drawing is overlapping the ones that are already there. So they're in the middle part between the tops and the bottoms, and the bottom part of it overlaps both of the ones that they're next to. All right, so the tip of it goes to the tick mark, and it overlaps the one that is to the right and to the left of it. Now the drawing part of this is finished, and we're going to get our 10-0 round brush in the color Mars Black. So this is my little round brush. It's got that little tiny tip to it, and you see me dipping it in the water and kind of rolling it around in that black. I want this line to be very fine, so it helps if you twist the brush and it gets that paint on the bristles, but it also gets the bristles prepared to paint a very thin line. And basically what we're doing is we're painting over all the design that's in the middle of the circle. I'm not painting the outer edge of the circle. I'm just painting those, I called them cat eye shapes. We're painting all of those and plus that little circle in the middle. Okay, so you can paint that little circle in the middle and all the little shapes that you drew, and you're going to paint them. So you really kind of want to make sure give yourself a steady hand with this brush. If you would like to try it with a black paint pen, it works very well with the black paint pen. You just get a very consistent line with the paint pen if you like that, but I wanted to try this with the little liner because I like the look of the stroke of the brush versus the paint pen. So it's up to you. If you're having trouble with the little brush getting in there with the lines, go ahead and grab your paint pen, and it's not going to affect the outcome of the painting, in my opinion. So that's what we're doing here. We're just outlining what we drew and going right along. Take your time. Press pause if you need to. And then you may find that you are going over your pencil lines, but maybe you don't go exactly over your line, because as you're painting you kind of adjust your shape, and that's perfectly fine. I do it all the time. You can always wait until your painting is completely dry and erase any leftover pencil lines that show on the canvas. Okay. Next, we're going to switch to a different brush. This is a number 6 round brush, so it's a larger brush than that little tiny brush. And I have the color Raw Umber and Titanium White. You saw me load it in both of those colors, and that's to get your circle to have a little bit of shading, because when you paint you can see that brown is getting light and dark, and the paint is kind of doing its own thing, and that's okay. That's what we want. But you still need to have a good steady hand for this step, because we want to trace that circle and keep it looking like a circle. And we also want the thickness of the line to stay pretty consistent, although if there's some variations in the thickness, it's not going to really affect the outcome of the painting, but you want to kind of keep it the same. So if you're pressing hard with your brush, you're going to have to press hard all the way around. I'm pressing kind of medium. It's not a thin line. The line is thicker than the inside black lines, so you want to kind of be knowledgeable about that. That line is thick. That should be thicker, because it is bigger than those string lines. Okay, so there we have it. We have the circle, and now I'm back to the 10-0 round brush, or if you're using a black paint pen, go back to your paint pen, and we're gonna paint these lines that are coming down from that circle. These are the strings that are attached to the circle, and so I'm just painting over what I drew. I drew those lines with the pencil, and I'm painting over it. And of course you can adjust your line if you kind of feel like it needs to go in another direction. You can do that, and then when the painting dries you can erase your leftover pencil lines. So the thickness of this line should be just about the same as the inside lines. Maybe mine looks a little bit thicker because I'm pressing a little bit harder with that brush, so maybe about the same or a little bit thicker. And I added another line up here that I didn't draw with a pencil, but that's what I did. I just added that because I decided to put another feather up there. Okay, and don't forget that little string at the top. It's barely noticeable in the end, but that's where our Dreamcatcher is hanging, so we have the little string at the top. Okay, next we're going to do the beads, and we're going to start with the blue beads, and I jump shift here to the number 6 round brush, and I'm using phthalo blue and titanium white. And what I'm doing is the same thing that I did with the circle. I dipped it in the blue and I dipped it in the white so that I could get a little bit of shading with my circles, a little bit more interesting than just doing the solid blue. It also helps it show up a little more opaque because it's got that white in it. And so I'm just painting kind of it's a small circle, but I'm not just dotting it. I'm actually using my brush to form a circle. So I'm painting a circle with the brush instead of just painting a dot. Okay, and they're pretty much all the same size. And the location that I'm doing them on are on all the tips of the design, the cat eye shapes, so that the tips of where they touch the circle. So I'm painting essentially it's overlapping the circle and the tip right there. Okay, so I'm going to do that on all the tips, and again just reloading it in the blue and the white. And you might get some color variation, so you might have one circle that looks a little darker because there happened to be a little bit more blue on your brush, and then another circle might look a little lighter. And there is a part in this painting where we're going to add just a tiny highlight on all the beads, and we'll do that later when it dries. Okay, so what happened here on the bottom is I also did circles of where the string is touching the circle. So it looks like that there's 2 beads right there, right where the string is and right where the little tip touches the circle. So there's extra beads down there. Okay, and then now I'm doing a different kind of bead. These ones are smaller, so I'm doing a dot with my round brush. I'm just using the tip and I'm just dotting it. And when you dot it, it creates a little circle. And I'm making it look like these beads are close together. So they're kind of in clusters of 2 or maybe 3. And they are on the string design in the middle of the circle. Okay, and then I'm doing beads on the string that's hanging down from the circle. So there's some that are on the bottom part of the circle, and some that are kind of in the middle but still in clusters of 2 or 3. And so you can copy exactly what I'm doing. You can put your beads in the exact same spot that I'm doing. That's perfectly fine. Or you can get kind of creative and put them in different areas and just whatever you feel like doing. And you can also always change the colors. So if you want to do different color beads to symbolize different things or preference of colors, you can do that as well. Okay, so I switched gears here. My brush is dried off. Cleaned off the blue, and now I have diaxazine purple and titanium white on my palette. And so on the bottom of my circle I have this wrapped around purple kind of hide material that's wrapped around that circle right there where those beads are. And so I double loaded my brush, this is still the number 6 brush, in the purple and the white, and so that's how it's making the purple look kind of really bright right there because of that white going in the purple. So I'm painting on the bottom of that circle and just kind of making it look like there's string wrapping around the circle just on the bottom part where next to where those strings are hanging down. Next, I'm going to paint another set of string, and this is just diaxazine purple. There might still be a little bit of white left on my brush, but this is all diaxazine purple, and I'm just painting this string that's kind of wrapping around some of the strings, kind of wavy. Maybe it's a ribbon, a little bit thicker line. We don't know, but it's pretty. And so I'm gonna let this purple string have purple beads, and I dipped my number 6 round brush in the diaxazine purple and the titanium white, and I'm painting the little beads. And we're not going to get too crazy with these beads. I'm actually going to stop with the brush here, and I'm going to grab a piece of chalk. With this chalk, I'm going to draw the feathers on the edges of all the strings. So I'm going to do kind of a almost like the cat eye shape, but I mean it's a feather shape. So it's curved at the top, so it starts at the tip of the string, and actually part of the string hangs into the feather, and then it goes to a point, and this is just a piece of chalk. It comes off after we have painted, and there are my feather shapes. If you're using the traceable, those shapes are already there for you. If not, this is pretty really simple shape. And then we're going to paint our feathers in. This is a number 12 bright brush dipped in only titanium white. And when I paint these feathers, I'm going to use the full width of my brush. I'm going to start in the center part of the feather. But first of all, when we apply this paint to the brush, we want to make sure that there's a lot of paint right on the tip there. So I'm going to start in the center of the feather. I'm going to drag it out. I'm dragging it out to form kind of a curved stroke, and it's staying inside of the lines of the chalk that I drew. So the chalk drawing of the feather, and I'm just dragging it out from the middle outwards. This feather kind of reminded me of painting a palm tree. It's kind of the same concept, but it's thicker. And I'm filling it back in, so I'm going to apply more white to my brush, and I'm going to kind of fill it in. And if you want to get kind of a texture on the edge of your feather, you would turn your brush on its side and use the tip of it. So instead of the full width, you would get a thinner stroke by using just the tip of it, and then you would drag it out kind of slightly to get sort of feather texture on the end. But if you do the concept of just dragging it from the middle outwards and filling it in the lines that you drew, then you should be able to get a nice base for your feather. So I'm doing this again, starting from the middle and going outwards using the full width of the brush. And then it helps when you get to the tip of the feather on the bottom, use the tip of the brush on its side, and to get the thinner line as it goes thinner. So it starts out thick on the base of the feather. I'm using the full width and dragging it out. It's thick. And then when we get to the tip right here, I'm just using the tip of my brush on its side to create a thinner line, so that it makes it look like the feather is going to a point. And then just fill it in and make sure that it's a pretty good solid color. There's not very much blue showing through. There's a little bit of texture on the edges because of the way that I'm dragging the brush out. Okay, so I'm doing the exact same thing to all of my feathers. Okay, so I'm going back in and just applying a little bit more paint over here, kind of making the edges of these. So I'm kind of very gently, you see that, dragging it out just on the edges, and just to create kind of a sort of it's a feathery edge, gives it some texture just on the edges. So I'm going to kind of do that to all the feathers. I'm just kind of dragging it out very lightly on the edges to create texture. And if you use the tip of the brush on its side, you can get a little bit more detailed with your texture. At this point, I may have gotten outside of the original chalk lines a little bit, but that's okay. You don't always have to stay exactly confined in the drawing that you have on the canvas. It's only to be used as a guideline. So if you're going outside of the lines of the chalk drawing or the traceable, that is okay. And then you see me here doing the middle part. It's not noticeable, but I use the tip of my brush to paint the middle part of the feather. And then onto the designs on these feathers. There's some purple designs, and I just dipped my brush in dioxazine purple. My feathers are not necessarily dry yet, so that's okay. There might even still be a little bit of white on my brush, and that's okay. So I'm just gonna kind of do the same kind of stroke. So to get the thinner sort of stripe line on your feather, you would use the tip of your brush and just kind of make sure that it's going slanted downwards, where the feathers, the direction that the feather is going diagonally downwards. And to get the thicker line, you would use the full width of the brush and again drag it downward. So it's the same kind of stroke that we did with the white, only it's showing up purple now. And you want to make sure, so there's that line in the middle, and I'm not touching that line in the middle. I'm kind of making it still show through. So if you look closely, you can still see that white line in the middle because I'm leaving it there. I'm not painting purple over it. So when I do my diagonal lines, it's stopping. See right there, I start right there, and I leave that white middle line visible. Okay, and then so for the point, the tip of the feather, you want to use the tip of your brush to get into that small area, but the point was to make all the little tips purple. And then I'm just kind of improvising here. I'm not really thinking too hard about why this one is thick and why this one is not thick. Just kind of zen out and do that. And so what happened with this feather was that I got a little too crazy and ended up being almost a solid purple feather, but it did not make a huge difference because I kind of liked the way it looked. And this feather did end up with a little bit of more purple there. Okay, and again, it's the same exact stroke that we did with the white, only it's showing up purple, and it's making it look like that there is a design on the feather. And I'm adding quite a few bit more purple strokes on this feather. And then if you look closely at my sample, there's a bit, there's little dots. So I'll show you how I did the dots here in just a second as I fill up this feather nice and purple. So to do the little dots, I'm back to the 10-0 liners. We're going to kind of twist that into the palette of just the dioxazine purple. And because I want it to be nice little dots, so I was twisting my brush to get my bristles to form a nice point and dipped it in the dioxazine purple, and I'm just going to do little dots in different areas of the feathers. So clusters of dots. I'm not going to do it all throughout the feather, but it's going to be just on certain parts of the feather. So just little dots, and that adds just another detail in this painting. I'm going to speed my video up here just a bit, and that's all I'm doing are the dots. It kind of takes a bit of time to do all those little stippling, so take your time. For video purposes, mine is speeding up here. And then I am back to my number 6 round brush with phthalo blue, and basically I'm doing more beads, so those blue beads again, and I just felt like there should be beads where the feathers are. So we have the feather and they're tied to the string, the little stem, the base of the feather, it's probably under the beads. Whatever the case, it looked pretty with the little beads right here next to the feather, and that's what I did. Back to my 10-0 round brush, and I'm doing titanium white little highlights. The thing with the highlights is, so they all need to be on the left side, and that's all I'm doing is on the left side of every single one of my beads. I'm doing a little white highlight. Just that little minor detail gives it a bit of depth, and it's almost sort of a little bit of a realistic look in this painting. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, and I don't think I did it with the really tiny beads. I think I just did it to the bigger beads. And then, yep, I did. I ended up doing it to the really tiny bead. So it doesn't take much effort. It's just a little tiny line on the left side of everything. Gives it a nice little touch. Okay, so next I'm going to show you how I did this purple rose. And this is my 6th round with just dioxazine purple on the brush. And I'm going to paint a smallish looking circle. So it almost looks like it's a bead. So there's a bead. And then I'm going to dip my brush in the dioxazine purple and the white. And I'm going to make these strokes go in a curve around that circle. And I'm going to kind of keep building out from the center, and all I'm doing is making a curved stroke with my round brush. I'm kind of pressing firm to create this stroke to be thick, and the reason why it looks like they are different shades of purple is because I'm dipping my brush in purple for one roll, and then maybe another roll I have a little bit of white, so there's a little bit more white on my brush here for this row of curved lines. And as I continue to paint these curves going out from the initial circle, and I'm just keep painting and overlapping the ones that are already there, so these little curves are slightly overlapping the previous curves. So I'm going to just keep building this rose, keep curving outwards with this brush, and getting different variations of purple and white on my brush. So when I just go back and dip it, I grab more purple one time, and then I go back and dip it in the palette, and then I have a little bit more white the next time. And so you get this, all the different color variations so that each of your strokes show, and it's forming this sort of rose style, one stroke style rose. I'm not sure what you would call this, but it looks pretty. And I'm going to keep going. I actually made this kind of big here because I was having a lot of fun with this flower. I didn't want to stop, but you can decide to stop at some point here. But I'm just continuing to add the same little curved stroke, and it's forming the shape. And so there's a little bit more white on my brush there, and I keep going with it. And at this point I'm at the edge of the canvas, so part of that purple rose is at the edge. And then what I did there with my round brush is painted these little dots in the center just for design purposes, and just with the titanium white, little dots right there in the center. And then I just kind of continued with my titanium white and just kind of went over some of those petals again with the white. Okay, so I know it's jump shipping here, it's just the way the video was edited, but the brush now has the green color on I can't think off the top of my head exactly what this green is, but it is listed in the material section, and so go look at it. It'll come to me, but it's an olive green, light olive green, and so I'm using it to the 6 round brush to paint 2 leaves, and so it's a thick leaf and it goes to a point, and there's 2 leaves, so just starting it solid with the light olive green color. And you might need 2 coats because it's a little bit translucent, but it wasn't too bad of translucent. And then I kind of painted over the petals, so I went back and added the purple. Of course the purple and the green kind of made a brown there, so but it wasn't too bad. And then to make the veins on the leaf, I'm back with my 10-0 brush with just the white, and you could add a little bit of olive green in that white if you want, but that green isn't dry all the way, so it kind of turns olive green and white anyway. But you do the middle line first, so this is the little brush, you do the middle line first, and then you do the diagonal lines that are kind of pointing outwards. So that's what I did there. and I just kind of outlined that one leaf right there. And then there's a different kind of leaf right here, and to make this green look darker, again, editing video purposes, I didn't show it, so I'm sorry about that, but it's a little bit of black mixed with the light olive green, and that makes the green look a little bit darker, just a tiny bit of black. You don't need a lot of black for that. And I just did the 2 lines. So these are, I don't even know what kind of leaves these are, but these leaves are so pretty. So I'm going to make little tiny leaves on those stems. So that's the middle stem. And now my brush has light olive green dipped in also titanium white. So a little bit of titanium white and the light olive green to get the green to be a lighter color. And I'm just pushing with my brush, kind of stamping my brush to create the little tiny leaf. And these are so pretty, but just stamping that 10-0 brush, just stamp, 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 and make sure they're all kind of going in the same direction. And then they're all kind of going diagonally down, and just stamping, stamping, stamping along that middle stem. Again, this is light olive green mixed with a little bit of titanium white, just to make it look kind of different from the rose leaves that we did, so they would stand out. Okay, so the orange flowers, I didn't even wait for any of this to dry. I was impatient, couldn't wait till it looked to see what it looked like at the end. But and it didn't affect it. But this is cad orange hue mixed with a little bit of titanium white. So you see it on my palette there. It's just kind of, you know, meshed together just a little bit, swirled together a little bit, because I don't like to mix all my colors all the way on the palette. But that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing the orange flower, and there's 5 petals to it that kind of go to a point. So this is the very basic flower. I am not a floral painter, and you've probably heard me say this with my other flower paintings. I paint flowers sometimes, and I always say I'm not a flower painter. I don't enjoy, no, it's not that I don't enjoy painting flowers, because I love painting flowers. I just never felt like they've been my best thing to paint. Anyway, so these are really simple, just 5-petal flower. And then there's these little dots in the middle, so I did little white dots with the 10-0 brush, and then I ended up doing black dots as well, because the white just wanted to do kind of different style reasons. I ended up doing black dots too. Okay, so I was kind of going for like a bohemian look with these flowers, and that is why. So right here I'm going to do the black dots. I'm going to get my brush rinsed off here and then do the black and the little black dots. Make sure you wipe the brush, the ferrule of the brush, so the water doesn't drip down. That's what happened there. So do the little black dots, and this painting is pretty much coming to its conclusion. I think I did one more thing to here. I did these little orange beads on the black string, so you'll see me do that as well here. So the flower part is finished, and the last thing I did was with the little 10-0 round brush, I did the little orange beads. So that is it. This painting has come to its conclusion. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thanks for watching.